Who's that?
Who else?
How you doing, Mr. Lee?
The unofficial sergeant of our.
Before we, Patrick, don't film for me, so, it's pretty obvious we're coming towards the end of our course. As far as I'm concerned, we've completed more than a one-semester course in philosophical psychology. We've really completed that. We dealt with all the intrinsic causes and the extrinsic causes. We dealt with evolution and things like that for the efficient cause and final cause. We've dealt with the existence of God. But I'll have a bit more to say about that in a few minutes. So what has been suggested to me, we could go on examining some of this. I could deal more with the interior life of the intellect and will. Somebody suggested that some of my published papers, we deal with them. I was thinking of taking texts from Aristotle and St. Thomas and examining them in class and discussing them.
Maybe not during the summer, but when we, in September something, say a 6 to 8 week crash course in logic or something like that. Would that?
I'd love that.
Would you?
Yes.
I gave a course once in 4 weeks. That was in Ottawa. One woman was raving. She was a newspaper reporter. She was raving about it. She said, "Do you realize what you did in 4 weeks?" "Yeah, I know. I sweated over it." I said, "I know what I did."
But I think everyone would like that and benefit from it.
All right. We'd have to work out how many sessions we've got, because when I did the 4 weeks, I must confess, on Saturday afternoon they came. You see, logic is a science, but it's also an art. You have to practice it. Practice it to learn the art. So the art and science of logic. There's a wonderful book which is suited for beginners. I used it to tremendous advantage in Ottawa. And it's, you'd have to Xerox a couple of hundred pages, I think. It's very difficult to get a decent book in logic today. This one, I can't do it for you because, well, I don't know, I might be breaking copyrights. I've no idea. But
It's only a sin if you take pleasure in it.
in Ottawa, we were lucky. One of my students was a printer, and he said, "I'll run them all off for everybody," and he did that. But I can't be part of that. I haven't got the time anyway to manage those things. But that could be done. The one I have in mind is Vincent Edward Smith, The Elements of Logic. You know, it was a terrible crime for that man. He had a joke with the president of his university. I can't even remember which university it was. He said, "Oh, I've had another job offered to me." He was just teasing the president. The president says, "Well, I hope you enjoy the new job, and I suggest you finish up on such and such a day." Lost his job over it. Then the poor man, not knowing what to do, like a lot of faculty who were forced into retirement, he decided to go back and do some study, and was killed crossing a road going to, and then his wife was killed in a car accident. What a sad ending for their lives, eh? Anyway,
What did you say about maybe going more deeply into what material that we're doing now?
well, we could reflect back over some of the operation of the intellect, for instance, and the will. In other words, what's properly human. We could do that. What I've given you is a sort of a start that you could, if you took up some study, you'd have this basis. And know this basis as a groundwork. That's the way to do it. That's what's usually done in graduate schools. They've assumed you've done undergraduate work, then they plunge you into some special areas or something like that. I suggest we take August off, and the fare to Australia has never been so cheap as it is at the moment. Go for it. It's $1,002. I've never.
I have $2.
And I cannot go.
Oh.
I think my physician would kill me if I attempted to take a ride in a plane at the moment. You'd understand that, wouldn't you? Yep. That'd be possibly very bad for me to do that, so I can't go. And Jenna said she'd kill me if I did. Or I'd take her, one of the two. So, anyway, we should take August off, I think, or some time off. And next year, we'll be starting, or late this in the fall, we'll be starting ethics, the science of ethics.
Yay.
That you're going to deal with all the problems. If there's one man I wish he was here for that. What was his name? What's his first name? Oh, what?
Harry.
Barack, that's it. Couldn't think of his name. Anyway, yes, well, we'll deal with a lot of things. But in the meantime, I'll give some thought to that about my own articles that I've had published. And I've had, somebody down in Nicaragua, an American, who's the dean down there at the American College, wants to publish my works in a book. He talked about this a long time ago, but it's never been done. I don't think it ever will be. I think I'd like to kick him for that, for even suggesting it. But anyway, that's another question. But at the moment I've got the Scholars for Social Justice. I'm organising a national conference on that, so I sort of am kept hopping just a little bit. So we will take August off, I think, but although one year, it was during summer here, I took about 10 people who are friends of mine, just friends, took them to the university, and no pay or anything like that, and we studied logic. We did a course in logic. I remember somebody saying, poor old Mrs. Darby, she's now 93, she probably doesn't even know what's going on. When I gave them a little exam, she came top. Oh, I was so pleased. Pardon?
It's called ageism.
Yes, I was so pleased. She got almost 100%.
Wow.
This other fellow, smarty pants, I was so pleased. Anyway, that's another question. So we'll continue on now. We pretty well agreed that we'll go from week to week and do some special topic I'll choose. I thought I'd tell you that just so you'll know what's going on.
We don't have many weeks, 2 weeks.
Pardon?
We don't have many 2 weeks before August.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah. Well, what do we do?
There's one more, I think, is there?
Pardon?
24 and 7, 30 days.
One more week.
2 weeks, 2 weeks. right?
24th to
2 weeks.
31st.
Yeah.
Well, the 2 weeks we'll fill them in anyway.
Good.
So,
Do you want to record that?
yes, please. So now, with regard to the human intellect, this I gave once in Australia, this particular topic, before a big audience of Christian brothers and priests and nuns and laity and Protestant ministers, all sorts of people were in that audience. One old Christian brother came up to me and he said, "That's the most brilliant exposition of the Blessed Trinity I have ever seen." Yeah, I said, St. Thomas was good, wasn't he? It's not mine, it's his. I merely gave out what he had done. Or did we turn it over?
No, I just did.
Oh, good, thanks, I've forgotten about that. So, my friends, the human intellect, although it can know itself, nevertheless, it takes its first beginning of its knowledge from outside itself, from without, because there is no understanding without a phantasm. In other words, an image in the imagination. Don't be frightened by that Greek word phantasm. The image in the imagination, it starts from there, and it must come from without, the human intellect. But more perfect is intellectual life in the angels. Now, for those who are new people here tonight, I will explain something about the word angel. Angel is a Greek word, A-G-G-E-L-O-S. Angelos. Double G in Greek is pronounced like that, angelos. And that means a messenger from God to man, or from man to God. That's the meaning of the word. But that's not our concern. The philosopher always spoke about spiritual substances, because those beings which are higher than man are necessarily spiritual substances, without bodies, in other words. So, through himself, an angel knows himself. He doesn't have to get it from things outside. Through himself, he knows himself. And don't be like that Dr. Miller, my old buddy in Australia, who wrote in his published work, that the angel's intellect is identified with its own act. That makes him God. There's a terrible error that Barry put in there. So, the spiritual beings, spiritual substances, not the same as them as understand and be. In other words, its act of understanding and its act of existing are other and other. So, he knows himself through himself, but it's not absolute, perfect knowledge, because the distinction between that and the other. In other words, the angel's intellect has to go from can understand to does understand. That's what it amounts to. Accordingly, the ultimate perfection of life belongs to God, in whom understand and be are not other and other. That's a beautiful expression in Latin, aliud et aliud, other and other. It's a very clear expression. I remember a philosopher at Niagara getting very upset because a student said that in some kind of a paper, other and other. But it's a beautiful expression. It means they're distinct and also separate. They're not only distinct but separate. And in God, there's no such thing as such separation, such distinction. We can distinguish it from our viewpoint, but it's not distinguished in him. His act of understanding and his act of being are identical. Aristotle saw that, the old pagan Aristotle. He said God is understand. Doesn't say has understand. He is understand, the understand of an understand. He speaks of the intention understood, that which the intellect conceives in itself of the thing understood. Understand and be are not other and other. So, everything's identified in God. His act of understanding, the object of his act of understanding, Aristotle saw that. And he knows him, by knowing himself, he knows everything. Past, present, and future. He knows the lot by knowing himself. Because everything other than himself participates in him. Participates him, his perfections. So that by knowing things other than himself, we get to know him better. The scientist who explores the plant world, the animal world, and that wonderful world of all those minerals, beautiful things, when you know all those things, you're getting closer to knowledge of God. That's what it is, because he created them all. We're knowing all the perfection of him in understanding those things. So when we spent days, weeks, months studying all the structure of the plants, their physiology and their everything except their psychology, we'll leave that to the philosopher. But when we're studying those things as students, we're learning something about the nature of God. Because do follows be. Whatever he does be, he produces. So by knowing what he produces, we know him. As I said, the psychiatrist, he sees a person come in and the person says, I'm going every Monday. And he says, well, on Tuesday you've got to go. The best way to overcome it. So he watches what the person does, how they think. And this idea of free association, etc., gives him an idea of what he's dealing with. And he tries to read into it things that the person themselves don't always realise what they're giving away. So I remember two women down at who asked me to meet them. I'd met them at some kind of a reception, and we were down at the Whirlpool Park. They phoned me and asked, would I like to join them to go for a walk and have a chat? Really what they wanted to do is to ask me a lot of questions. The first thing one said to me is, can you read people's minds? And I said, no, neither can anybody else. What you can do is read what people say and what they do. You can read, for instance, a person is always telling you sort of sexy stories, as it were. You've got a pretty good idea that what's within him, etc. So we look at what the person says and does, and thus we know the person. So it's not a matter of meeting their minds, it's meeting their operations, their do's, various do's. So, my friends, by knowing God, by knowing the things he's made, we know what he does. I've put a fair bit more in this article which I've sent out to you, and which only a couple of people got because I sent them out very late. It was after 4 o'clock this afternoon, but you'll have the notes of what I've been saying tonight. And I'm producing what I can at the moment. But what I want to say now doesn't pertain to philosophy, but it pertains to theology. Where philosophy leaves off, that's where theology can begin. What we've discovered about the ultimate source of man's being, about his final cause, the only thing that can satisfy him, unlimited good, unlimited true, unlimited beauty, what all those things are the only things that can satisfy us. As I mentioned, we're never satisfied. What was it Francis Thompson talked about? I hunted him down the trails and vales or something. I've forgotten how it goes again. But
Down the nights and down the days, wasn't it? Wasn't it something like that?
Down the what? The
down,
days.
Down
Yeah.
the nights and down the days.
Something like that, yes. Anyway, the thing is, various philosophers have written on this, and theologians have written on this, that the groping, the searching, the satisfaction of the human will, it's very difficult. Just not enough time, not enough available evidence, etc., etc. Nevertheless, we can know something more than that because he's revealed it. He's the only one that could know it about it. He's the one that revealed it. He's revealed it to us through the sacred writings. So by knowing him, knowing the sacred writings, we find what's proper to him. Now, I can know something about this little lady sitting in front of me, Elizabeth. I can know something about her, what she's got in common with everybody. Namely, she's got intellect, she's got will, she's got a desire for the satisfaction of the will, she's by nature musical, by nature social, by nature speechful, has speech, etc., etc. We go at all that. But can I know what's proper to her? I know what she has in company with everybody else because she's human. But what is special to her? Does she like bebop? Does she like Beethoven? I don't know. Yes, she likes... Yes, actually, I do know. She does like Beethoven, don't you, sweetheart? But what the political party she belongs to? I can know Helen's, that she's the same thing, got all these various commons with everybody else, by nature social, by nature political, by nature this, that, the other, scientific, etc., etc. And she can boil water without burning it, etc., etc. We know all those things about her, but what is proper to her? What political party does she belong to? What musical school does she belong to? What is she like here in politics? What is she like there in stories, etc., literature? The only way we can get to know those things is by knowing her. And how do we know her best? By loving her. By loving somebody. That's how you get to know the individual. Because when you love somebody, you see things from their viewpoint. You get behind their eyes, as it were, and know something about what they love by what we discover there, by loving them. So that's how it is with God. This is all philosophy. This is not theology that I'm talking about now. So we get to know a lot about God by what he's got in common with us. But what's proper to himself, we got through revelation. He can tell us lots of things. For instance, there are 3 persons in the one God. And that there's relationship. They've each got divine nature. They all form part of that simplistic being. And as it were, they're all something that has got 3 sides, 3 aspects, 3 viewpoints of the one God. So, remember what Augustine explained to us. He adapted the thinking of Plato and showed us that I'm going to invent one of these things that'll clean the boards themselves.
You need your angel.
Yes, I think so. Yes, where are you, Elizabeth? So, remind me I've got something in my briefcase for you after, will you?
I certainly will.
St. Augustine said, there's God the Father. You see, he's influenced by Plato. So he's trying to express it in Platonic philosophy. And he expresses it. Just as our ideas are the sons of our intellect, so the Son is the expression of what God is. He alone can understand his nature, and he alone can say it. And there's the saying of it.
The word.
Pardon?
The word.
The word. We say son, but the word, or verbum in Latin, or logos in Greek. I remember one day I had a member of the, what do you call them? Can't think of their... One of these people go from door to door. Jehovah's Witness. I couldn't think of it for a minute. Jehovah's Witness. And I got talking to him after a while, and I don't know what came up, but he caught me off guard, as a matter of fact. It was Saturday afternoon, and I was as tired as anything. I'd been working hard that morning, and the late night before, and I said something about, you mean the Logos? And he looked at me. I said, do you understand the meaning of the word Logos? It's the word that says what God is. Oh, is that what the word Logos means? He said. I've always wondered. When I asked him what soul, he couldn't answer it. And somebody had to come and take him off and rescue him. He said, it was actual, that actually he came and rescued. He said, we only allow so much time for each person, you know. I said, he hasn't answered my question, what the soul is.
When you nail them, they're forget it.
He said, your blood, that's what the soul is, your blood.
Oh, the love is in the blood.
I said, that's bloody awful.
Throw them off their script.
So, and when the Father utters the word, expressing what he is, he loves that, and that's the Holy Ghost. Or if you're older than 21, it's Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
So it's only us oldies, that's to say over 21, who calls it Holy Ghost. So that's, the Holy Ghost is the love. He loves what he says. Now, and as Augustine explained, in terms of Platonic philosophy, everything participates this. Everything participates in the Son, the Word, the divine Word. All things are like its agent. All things produced by an agent are loved by the agent and are reflecting what the agent is. He does, he gives what he is. Do follows be. So, by looking at all these things, we learn more about this. All the possible things. Just as I can know about Elizabeth, I know about her mother by knowing her. But she is social, laughing animal, political animal, etc., etc. All those wonderful things that are properties of man, the metaphysical properties of man, as we call them. But whether she likes this music, or likes that literature, or likes this political party, or that political party, those are things, or likes that sport, those are things I can only know by knowing her. Well, that's been revealed in the case of God. So there's an enormous amount. St. Thomas asked this question, whether any created intellect can see the essence of God, whether those who see the essence of God see all in God, etc., etc. And of course, they don't. It takes an infinite, well, there's time. It's a silly thing to say infinite time, but it takes an infinity to get these things never finished. The notion of the infinite is no matter how much you take, there's more to come. So it takes all of that in order to get to know that being, because it's infinite, never finished, and never will finish. I remember a woman who was Danish told me that she found the Christian notion of God very boring, just having to sit and contemplate him all the time. Our idea of a God, she said, is a great feast, or heaven, a great feast. I said, I get pretty sick of that. You get fed up with that after a while. You should have seen it coming. Now, I'd like to say just a couple of words about atheism. You know, two people laid the foundations of atheism in the modern world. Protestant Kant and Catholic Descartes. This is where philosophy can lead you. That is why sometimes some clergy get frightened when they find out their parishioners are studying philosophy. They get scared because they got pretty shoddy courses in the seminary themselves, and they think that everybody else is getting shoddy courses. But it all depends how we know external reality. Now, William of Ockham, oh dear, what age did he live? Way back, 14th century something? What we know is the singular. Remember, there are three great problems in philosophy. There's the problem of the universal, philosophy's principal problem. In other words, can we know natures? That's what that amounts to. Can we know what a man is? A young man said to me once, we cannot, he learnt this at the University of Sydney, we cannot know what a man is. All we can say is, that is a man. That's all we can say. I said, that's giving you're implying a definition of man. What we perceive by the senses is what his man is. That's a contradiction. I said, to say we can't define man, and yet you go and do that. So the universal, can we know the natures of things? Like Kant says, no, we can't know the natures of things. We can't know what's out there because all we can know is a composite. The tree is compounded with my mind. I don't know what comes from the tree, and I don't know how much comes from the mind. Then he writes 3 big volumes about the nature of knowledge. Karl Marx did something similar. Karl Marx says we can know matter, therefore the mind is matter. If he'd have done any kind of analysis, if he'd read anything of Aristotle, he'd have known the mind is not matter precisely because it can know matter. You saw that way back in our course. It can know matter, that's why the mind is not matter. So the universal, and that amounts to what? The nature of knowledge. We solve that with the nature of knowledge. And the nature of knowledge, we solve that with potency and act. Remember, the whole of philosophy can be written on the back of a postage stamp by writing potency and act. Yet you see books, one after the other, no mention of potency and act. On the existence of God, there are so many philosophers who've written on that and written so badly that it's nauseating to look at them. I've got a mile of them at home. They just don't know the proofs. They know nothing about what we've studied tonight. One of them recently startled the world. I can never remember the man's name. I can't think of it for the moment. An English philosopher, and he suddenly discovered there is a God. He became a theist and startled the whole philosophical world. Yet his books all reflect his atheism. But now he knows. But when you read what he wrote and what others wrote, it's a false setting up of the proofs. You saw in detail how we examined the first way, and all the others are reflection of the first way. So the 3 great problems in philosophy. The theory of knowledge is absolutely at the heart of it. I was in Salamanca in Spain, and I met 2 American students there at a seminary. One was an ordinary American, the other was Spanish American. And they said to me, there's no way of proving the distinction between the nature of something and its existence. I said, yeah, what a bet? And unfortunately, they got away from me. I shouldn't say they got away from me. Events turned out that I never was able to find their address again to send them a proof. I was going to promise to do that. But they were studying at Salamanca. I had, I suppose a good half hour or something, maybe 3/4 of an hour with the dean of the faculty of philosophy there. He spoke beautiful French, by the way, and he was an old Franciscan. And we talked about the possibility of Australian students going there and that sort of thing. And they had to study 3 years to get the licentiate. We had to study 2 years at Montreal to get the licentiate. Because of my background, they gave me 1 year to do that, and other students that had a sufficient background. But anyway, the thing was 3 years to get the doctorate, at least. And most students some take 10 years, some never get it at all. And 70% of them end up with either nervous trouble or stomach trouble. It's hard work. Anyway, but the point is, these 2 students, these American students, were asking about the distinction between essence and be, and Woodbury has beautifully laid it out. and all the difficulties that one could throw up against it, he didn't sidestep them. He showed that they were asking the questions in the wrong way. And as Aristotle and many philosophers have said, science consists in asking the right questions, but you've got to know how to go about asking the right questions. In any case, coming back to our theme, William of Ockham, what we know is the singular. No, what we know is the universal with the intellect. The senses know the singular, that's how we distinguish them. What I see is this tree, what I understand is tree. Universal. Then Descartes, what we know is our idea. He didn't even say the singular out there. He starts off with what we know is our idea. And he influenced so many people in Europe. Kant, what we know is the phenomenon. What is the phenomenon for Kant? It means our idea for him. And it's a composite between the tree and my mind, the two compounded together. Gee, how much comes from the mind, how much comes from the tree? So we cannot know the thing in itself. That's what Kant taught. He called it the noumenon. What's in here is the phenomenon, what's out there is the noumenon. We cannot know the thing in itself. Now Kant is the god of the moderns. And it was all started by Descartes. Somebody said he should have been a night cart, not a Descartes. You know what a night cart is, do you? Well, they don't have toilets. They just have bins, and they go around collecting the bins on night carts.
Not it now.
In country places, that is. So Descartes was misled by Kant and a lot of other people. He's the father of the modern mess. We cannot know the thing in itself, says Kant. So Hegel says, the German philosopher, all we can know is the idea. I will send this chart out to you, by the way. I think you might like that. It denies that there is a thing in itself. Hegel did. And up till the First World War, everybody in the universities in the world were teaching Hegelian philosophy. Fichte, Schelling, and Hegel were three German philosophers who all had similar idea. All the universities except the Catholic universities were teaching Hegel's idea. So Hegel rejected the idea that there is anything out there. Kant said there is something there, but we can't know it. All we can know is its existence. And Hegel said, well, existence is an idea too. So began the immanence of knowledge. We're locked up in our knowledge. Elizabeth, you're an idea in my mind. Maybe I'm an idea in your mind. Maybe we're both an idea in your mum's mind. Maybe we're all ideas in the mind of God. That's how Hegel went about his business. It's very difficult reading German philosophers, by the way. They start out a sentence at the top of the page, and by the end of the page, you still haven't got the completion of the sentence. You don't know what the hell he started out with, and neither does he. You get
What page are we on?
Oh, in Kant, 365 and a half. We're not on any, sweetheart.
Oh.
No, we're not on any. But so the German philosophers, it's often said, we had to study, who was it we had to study something from Kant, that's right, at graduate level. We had 3 commentators on it. And reading the commentators didn't make it any better. So the immanence of knowledge. Knowledge is locked up within us. And the idea is what we know, and the whole denial of the objectivity of knowledge. We don't know what's outside.
They're using the Heisenberg principle to back up that philosophy, though. The uncertainty principle?
Uncertainty, yep.
That you can't know the thing because your very observation of it changes it.
Yes.
So we can't know the noumena.
Yeah.
And they're using quantum physics now to back that up. What do you say about that?
Well, I say they're wrong.
Well,
Obviously.
Well, if they studied potency and act, they wouldn't be in the trouble they're in. And if they established potency and act and noticed the potency of the intellect for beings outside of us, you see, they're omitting all of that, missing the whole point. The intellect is potential towards. If the intellect was in act towards knowing trees, everything we knew would be in terms of trees. But it's not. The intellect is only potential with regard to trees, not actual. Remember, when was it? 5th century B.C., Anaxagoras said, what appears inwardly hinders and
Hinders and
obstructs the extraneous. I couldn't think of the word, thank you. Hinders and obstructs the extraneous. What appears inwardly would hinder what comes from outside. If I had something within me, it would already some determinate nature in the intellect, it would obstruct me knowing trees. That's Anaxagoras. And you've got to, it takes a little thinking about that to see in terms of Heisenberg and all the others. So, the ideas are what we know. And nearly all the contemporary philosophers start out with the idea. What the idea is what we know. Father Regis in the classroom in Montreal said, what do we know? Qu'est-ce qu'on connaît? He said something like that. And Georges Helal, who's now a professor there, said, l'idée, the idea. What do we know? We know the idea. Regis nearly blew a gasket. He said, no, ce n'est pas l'idée que nous connaissons. It's not the idea we know. It's the thing in itself outside the mind we know. And we proved that when we came through. If you follow that carefully in our notes, you'll see how we prove that. So nothing transcends our knowledge. So we're all just ideas in the mind of a great being, the Absolute, as Hegel taught it. Nothing goes beyond our knowledge. I may be conscious of my part in that being, and you're conscious of your part, but we're all in the mind of the Absolute. There's no transcendent being, no being that climbs beyond our knowledge. So you get a pantheistic notion of God. All is God. Pantheism means all is God, you remember. So what am I touching? I'm touching God. What am I touching? I'm touching God. Every being is a part of God. So God is an absolute spirit for Hegel. Matter doesn't exist, it's just an idea. But Marx liked that. He loved it and said, this is great. What convinced Marx of that was the idea of the struggle of opposites. He only knew about 100 years of history, and he saw the struggle of the opposites. Remember, what Hegel said is there is a dialectic, a picking through things, and we see the opposition. Ideas oppose each other, and we progress from that. That's Hegel. Marx said, I love that, studying at the University of Bonn. By the way, it's a very beautiful place. Not like our conception of a university, but nice buildings on a main highway and very, very stately in Germany. And he studied there with he was called, amongst others, Fichte, at least Feuerbach and Marx were called the young Hegelians. And they decided that this was a great idea, this struggle of opposites. So, what is it? He applied it to matter. Instead of saying all is spirit, Marx said all is matter. He never proved it. Never proved it. I've got the selected writings of Marx, Engels, Feuerbach and Stalin, etc., produced by the Australian Communist Party. And this book, nowhere does it define anything that would tie them down. So there's nothing apart from matter. They just assume that. That's what Marx did. And the struggle between the opposites. Namely, there's the working class and there are the bosses. Those who own property and those are just the working class. Struggle between the two. And out of that will come the perfect society. Hasn't happened so far. Frank Sheed. How many people know Frank Sheed or know of him? He's an Australian that went to live in London, went to live in London at the age of 21. He was a lawyer and he established the Sheed and Ward Publishing House, which produced some wonderful books. Now I've forgotten what I was going to say about Sheed.
We were talking about Marx before that.
Marx, yes. So Frank Sheed, there are more contradictions in Marx than probably any other philosopher. full of contradictions. For instance, the principle of causality doesn't apply. So they founded the Communist Party to make sure that the new idea, the planned idea of a state did exist, to cause it. Flat contradiction. There are more contradictions in Marx than probably any other philosophy. Nothing exists apart from matter. Result is, can't prove there's a God, atheism. So modern atheism really springs from Catholic Descartes and Protestant Kant. I think somewhere Kant says it's convenient to think there's a God. Or there may be a God, but we cannot prove it, according to Kant. All of this is an extraordinary attitude for philosophers. The thorough analysis which men like Cajetan, Jean Poinsot, commonly known as John of St. Thomas, Billouard, and then more modern men, Maritain, Regis, Woodbury, Geiger. I was lucky enough to study under about 4 of those great names. But the thing is, they do an analysis, a thorough analysis. Regis's book on epistemology, it's a magnificent thing, crammed with knowledge and an understanding of the mess that Kant and Descartes caused. Those men didn't do an analysis like that. The idea of proof doesn't appear in many books, and one series of books being produced by our university in recent years, I can't find anything proved there. It's just all nice and descriptive. As Dr. Bonnet, I lent him the books, and he's examined them. He said, they don't prove anything. One of them I'd like to have used for this class, but no, I wouldn't recommend it. They don't prove anything. The idea of a principle of reason, shining the light of that reason on a fact, and drawing a conclusion which causes the explanation of the cause of the fact, never enters their minds. What we're dealing with now is more descriptive, what we're dealing with tonight. But what we went through, as you saw before, right at the beginning, we start to prove things. And the idea of a one-semester course, which we have in North America, which displeased me immensely when I first came here, but I've managed to settle into it. This course took 2 years when I last did it. I did it twice, 1 year and then 2 years in Australia. And for a man like Woodbury, it's absolutely fabulous. However, St. Thomas examines the names in the Summa of Theology, question 13, 12 and 13. What name can be given to God? The one name is what he says himself, I am who am. I have never really seen a satisfactory explanation of that except from Woodbury, that boy from the bush, my farm, who directed cattle breeding as a hobby, as a farm boy when he got older and became a priest. But all the good things we can say about the world can be said about him, but in a greater way. For instance, we say, porridge is good, chocolate is good. But God, goodness, is more than that. So there are 3 things we can say about it, about the cause. Say, God, and let's say chocolate, something like that. Chocolate is good. We have to understand everything we know in terms of things around us. What else have we got to learn from? All the things around us. We say it's good. Therefore, we argue that God is good. This is good. So we argue that this must be good. But as one English philosopher who got very much muddled with all of this, didn't understand, it's an analogical concept. That is to say, there is a likeness, but a greater unlikeness. That's the notion of analogy. When I say the sea is angry tonight, I'm using the word angry in an analogical way. It's like a man's anger, but it's more than that. It's more unlike than like. That's the notion of the analogy. More unlike than like. So we can say it's good, but this is more good. Perhaps we should put a capital G there. So there are 3 things we can observe about that. It's like God's goodness is like the goodness of chocolate, but it's not the goodness of chocolate. It's more than the goodness of chocolate. Likey, notty, mori. Likey, notty, mori. Analogy, negation, and by superlation, if you like, superlative. It goes beyond it. Likey, notty, mori. And there was a big discussion, I believe, in the Adirondacks. One of my former students, a little older than the usual students, his father has some kind of store in Buffalo. You might even know them, Joe. I've forgotten the name now. But they had a store in Buffalo, a furniture store. And he rang me. He said, I just wanted to tell you an experience I had. This is a seminary for late vocations. He said, we had a big dispute the other day in the class, big discussion, and he said, it suddenly dawned on me. I know what Doc Waters said, he said. I remember now, likey, notty, mori. And he said he solved the whole argument by just those 3 words, likey, notty, mori. So, in other words, everything he creates, when he creates something, everything is essentially like him. Where is it? Sun. Essentially like him. Everything he creates is in some small manner. One little spark of his own nature, for instance. There it is in front of me. Beautiful Elizabeth. You don't have to grin like that. So it belongs to her to be like God in some way or another. But the likeness is only a limited likeness. There's a greater unlikeness than likeness. That's the notion of the analogous. So, likey, notty, mori, of goodness. So that says it all. So the names of God, the best name is the pure act of be. What something does be. He's a pure be. His pure act is what the philosophers like to refer to him as. Pure act. Or pure be, if you like. Capital B, capital E. So that's his most proper name. And it was in Exodus 3, 13 and 14. Thus shalt thou say to them, when Moses said, if they should say to me, who is his name? What shall I say to them? The Lord answered him, thou shalt say to them, he who is has sent me to you. He who is the most proper name of God. In other words, am, the verb to be. He absolutely is. I think we've covered most of this, my friends, and Thomas does a tremendous analysis on quality, verbs and participles in speaking of God. We cannot emphasize enough his excellence. And I think that if we understand that from human reasoning, we can reason in terms of things like this. We get a worm's eye view in philosophy. In sacred theology, they get a bird's eye view. Reasoning from the bird's eye view down there. The whole of reality is examined in philosophy from a worm's eye view. The whole of reality is examined in theology from a bird's eye view, from God's revealed word. On that note, I think we've completed our course.
Additional copies of this course may be obtained by contacting Olteen Library Services, 2316 Delaware Avenue, PMB 325, Buffalo, New York 14216, or look online at www.aquinasphilosophy.com.